I am so excited to have Congresswoman Barbara Lee, representative of the 13th Congressional District of California, joining Woke AF today. Congresswoman, there's a lot happening in the House of Representatives. There's a lot happening in our politics and in our country right now. Before I jump into any specifics, I just want to know, how are you feeling? How are you doing? It's been a little over a week or close to 2 weeks since the passing of Congressman John Lewis. How are you doing?
Well, up and down, I guess I would say, health-wise, and sheltering in place and following all of the health protocols I've been following. And so, fortunately, my family is safe and healthy, and I am. And, I'm worried more about those who are on the front line, essential workers, and people who don't have access to health care and what's taking place, especially in Black and brown communities. Now, that keeps me up at night because there is no reason why we should have this virus, where it's at in terms of the rates of transmission and the deaths in the Black community and in brown communities. And so I guess I would say that that's what my emotions kind of, where they take me, but also recognizing that I have a job to do and that I'm hoping that we can work through this HEROES bill so that people can have at least some extension of their unemployment benefits and some more cash in their pockets. So that's it's bittersweet. And then after losing Congressman Lewis, Congressman Conyers, Congressman Cummings, all of whom I have known since the 90s, Congressman Conyers in the 70s, I met him. So, this is a season that you have a pandemic upon sorrow, upon deaths of people that you know and love, but also just so many deaths in the country of families and members who you just mourn for, because these people didn't have to die. If this 45th occupant of the White House had stepped up and done the right thing immediately.
It is incredibly heartbreaking, I think, too, when you think about the fact that people didn't have to die. The numbers don't have to be where they are right now. They're only there for lack of planning, lack of strategy, lack of empathy, lack of thought. Tell us a bit about how far apart the Democrats and the Republicans are right now in terms of the HEROES bill. We know that 30 million Americans, right, have now stopped getting the $600 a week pandemic relief that folks were getting. We know that food pantry lines are like nothing we've ever seen in this country outside of, maybe World War I and World War II. How far is the bridge that we need to cross to meet in the middle here with where Republicans are?
Yeah, thank you for that, Danielle. It's pretty far, I must say. But the good sign is finally Mitch McConnell decided to at least engage in negotiations. Remember now, we passed the HEROES Act 2.5 months ago, and it's been sitting on his desk. We knew this day was coming. And so what do we have now? They want to put probably $200 in the unemployment extension. That is ridiculous. First of all, people want to work. Secondly, wages are stagnant and they're low. And so this $600 addition a week is survival money. It's not money that people are spending on whatever they think they're spending it on. People need this money to feed their families. Thirdly, when you look at what is taking place in terms of our businesses, our small, our African-American owned, our minority owned businesses, we need another infusion of PPP. That's coming to an end. Then you look at state and local governments. These, our frontline workers, many of whom are essential workers, many of whom are African-American, Latinx, they're funded through accounts and services that are provided through state and local governments. So you're going to see, which we've begun to see, massive layoffs of people who work for state and local governments. The Republicans won't even talk about that. They all they want to do is payroll. Well, the Trump payroll tax cut. They want more money for giveaways, tax giveaways, and we're not going to allow that to happen. We need to, and we're fighting for the people to make sure that the impact and additional funding for testing, contact tracing, and isolation and referrals. We know it's obscene what has happened in this country as it relates to the coronavirus. So we have more funding in for testing and for what we need to address the health issues. So the HEROES bill is at least there. They know what needs to be done, and we're in the process of entering in the negotiations, but we're still very far apart.
You know, I said this the other day on my show, and here's my understanding of where Republicans are. I don't believe that Republicans deeply care about the American people. These are my words, not yours. I believe that Republicans, based on the policies that they have put forward, think that the American people are innately lazy, right? And it's the CEOs and the shareholders that are the ones that deserve all of the benefits, $500 billion, no strings attached, PPP to multi-billion-dollar companies, while Black and brown and women-led businesses that need this money for survival are not getting it. 95% of those that applied that look like you and I did not receive PPP. Where do you think we need to shift as Democrats in the messaging around how Republicans continue to block Americans' ability to not just survive in this moment, but also to thrive?
Yeah, I think, and when you look at, we know occupant in the White House, Donald Trump, really does not care about anyone except himself. Okay, we know that. Then you look at the Republican policies. Historically, they have been policies that address the 1%, that seek to enhance corporations in terms of their profit margins, believing that it'll trickle down sooner or later to the workers. They really believe that. And so it's hard to say personally if they care or don't care, but their policies show me that they do not care. When you have people who were middle income now in line at food banks because they need something to eat, and the Republicans won't expand SNAP benefits or get rid of these horrible work requirements or help with food security for everyone, then something's really, quite frankly, wrong. That's immoral. The values are un-American, if you ask me. Yes. And so you just have to look at what they do and how they want, what accounts. I'm an appropriator, where they want to cut the funding. I mean, it's outrageous. Office of Minority Health disparities. When you look at the funding cuts in every account that addresses African Americans and people of color, their values present budgets that cut these accounts and put more resources into defense. Obscene, it's wrong, and hopefully people will understand this come November, because our suffering in this country is not because of us, it's because of policies of this government that has set out to really not enhance low income and poor people, help lift people out of poverty into the middle class. But these policies have been put forth constantly by Republicans to just make sure that the wealthy get wealthier and their corporate donors get more of your tax dollars. And that's what they're about.
You know, you bring up the Department of Defense and the fact that money, whenever Republicans control it, seems to pour in, right? We've watched on television for the past several months of unnamed, really unmarked federal agents of some sort occupy cities, tear gas people in the latest outfits, the latest and greatest in military gear. And I wondered myself, where did they get that money from? How is it that these people, who again, we don't know what agencies they are coming from, how did they get the latest and greatest? And yet our school teachers. We're asking our essential frontline workers to wear their own bandanas because we're not supplying them with PPP, to go and find, you know, a hooded sweatshirt or goggles in your closet because we're not providing that those resources. How do they get away with this?
Well, I think that again shows their values, first of all. These are private militias funded by the federal government, which happen in dictatorships. This is a reflection of Donald Trump's perspective and attitude about democracy. He doesn't believe in it. This is what you see in countries that we say should move toward democracy and stop upholding these strong men. Well, this administration is doing just that. And so these are funded by taxpayers, going in, causing violence and chaos in communities where they should never go, all because Donald Trump wants to make a political statement that he is of law and order and can stop protests, peaceful protests and dissent. That is what dictators do. Okay, that's dictatorial rule. Secondly, these resources, and that's why I don't vote for the defense budget, between Homeland Security and defense. You talk about out of balance. I mean, come on, $740 billion that was just passed in the National Defense Authorization Act. Of course, I couldn't vote for that. But what you have is, you know, members, Democrats and Republicans, voting for this. And it's because of many reasons. Military contractors cite plants and jobs in members' districts. And of course, no one wants anyone to lose their job. They do all kinds of ridiculous things with their PAC money. And so what you have is a chokehold, really, on some members who don't, and it's not necessarily about national security, although some will vote. We had a 10% cut this year. Congress, Bernie Sanders in the Senate, myself and Mark Pocan in the House, we got 93 votes for it. Well, that was progress. 10% cut is only, Danielle, $73 billion. That doesn't even scratch. That's not, you know, I've become to say 73 is nothing, right? It's nothing compared to the defense budget. It's gone up 20% under Donald Trump, $100 billion under him. We could have that $73 billion for PPP, for masks, for healthcare, for community clinics. These don't cost a lot of money. That $73 billion could be better used, yet we couldn't get Democrats or Republicans in final passage. Well, even on the amendment, you have to have 218 to pass. We got 93 votes. So it's a political issue that hopefully the public will begin to rally around, because until we get this defense budget and these tax cuts to the very wealthy under control, the federal government is always going to be out of balance as it relates to our domestic priorities and our priorities for the people.
Real quick, Congresswoman, Congressman Clyburn is beginning to sound an alarm that I myself have been sounding for at least 2 years, which is, I don't think that Donald Trump is going to leave the White House. Donald Trump has signaled to us that he is not going to accept the results of the upcoming election. The deployment of his own private militia in Lafayette Park in DC was a prequel to what we saw in Portland. Representative Clyburn is saying he's akin to Mussolini. People need to get prepared to kind of wake up, right, to the realities that we are in right now. Do you think that the American public, that the media is paying attention? Or do you think that folks still believe that Donald Trump is a joke and he's not going to make good on the statements that he has been saying? Because frankly, Donald Trump has made good on a lot of the crazy things that he has said. And yet people still don't take them seriously.
Yeah, I think our whip, Mr. Clyburn, is absolutely correct. And the media needs to take it seriously, and people need to, because once again, this is a sign. This is what dictators do. This is what he mimics himself after. This is how they operate. And so we have to be prepared. We have to vote and make sure that we win this election. And secondly, we have to organize around making sure, and I think I was glad to see the Republicans respond that they don't think that that's appropriate or should happen either. But this is starting, though, now in terms of voter suppression, in terms of trying to choke the mail delivery services and the postal service, refusing, and that's in another, budget allocation appropriations in the HEROES Act to make sure that our post offices have what they need to safely deliver mail. So people, if they want to vote at home, they can vote at home. And so they've started, and then not to mention Russian interference, because we know where the Russians are in this election. We know that outside forces are going to continue with their destabilizing and trying to steal the election. So we all have to be concerned about that. But unless you know your history of what, as Mr. Cliven laid out, we will sleep through this. And that's the problem in this country. Schools haven't taught people much about fascism or about historical moments that we need to understand so we can understand the current predicament we're in and the current moment we're in. And so all you have to do is take a quick history lesson back to the 30s and the 20s and the 30s, and you will see all of the signs. And so I hope the press begins to cover this in a way that's in the historical context and show the similarities between dictatorial rule and what we are under right now. And this is another manifestation of that. And that's why we have got to vote. We've got to do our job first. And then, I'm sure that we'll have a way constitutionally to make sure that the results of the elections are upheld.
Congresswoman, last question for you. What advice do you have for the American people as we make this slow, because it's going to feel like 90 years, the slow march to November 3rd? How should folks be preparing, both emotionally, physically? We know that polling stations are going to be shut down. We know that we are once again going to see lines that could be 7, 8, 10 hours long. What advice do you have for young people, for older people, to prepare for what is going to be the most consequential election of our time?
And again, very important, but first thing is stay healthy. Stay sheltered, use a mask, continue with washing your hands, using hand sanitizers. So you've got to be healthy so you can vote and so you can live your life and not transmit this virus to other people, because that is so critical right now, the health context in which we live and vote. Secondly, voting is really conducted state by state. Find out what your state is doing. Some states are beginning to mail out ballots now. Do early voting. Vote early. Know what the rules are in your state. We're going to have lawyers monitoring this all over the place. But I would say, yes, prepare yourself mentally. But the first thing is stay healthy. Second thing is vote, and know the rules in your state. And help others to understand and network with your organizations and come up with ways that you can check on each other to make sure they voted and make sure you vote for the right people. And start reading now. Start understanding the context in which we are in. So, and start at the state level, start knowing what your ballot measures are saying. Do you support them? Don't you? Start working with the NAACP and other organizations who are engaged in civic engagement and voter participation. So I would say start working now with groups that are organizing for November, because with unity we're strong. As long as we stay together, they can't beat us back. And so I would say just mentally get strong, be strong, stay healthy, and know what your states are doing, and work with organizations so you can have a collective group of people who are doing this together.
Congresswoman Barbara Lee, I always appreciate you. I appreciate your leadership, your transparency, your honesty, and your continued hard work to get us back on track to get us back on track as a country, because I still muster some type of faith when I speak with you and I speak with others. You managed to get me to muster a little mustard seed of faith.
Damn, listen,
So we
thank
can
you
make
so
it
much.
through.
And I'm glad you're doing what you're doing, and your voice is so important because you're connecting with a lot of people, and you're giving people hope. And you got to remember, just personally, right? When I was born, my mother couldn't, they wouldn't admit her in the hospital because she was Black. She almost died. She needed a C-section. And finally, they let her in. Long story, but bottom line is I almost didn't get here. She almost died. And they had to deliver me using forceps. And so, but here I am, and still we rise, okay? And still we rise. So we have to understand, that's again, the historical context of in which we live now, that we made a lot of progress, but we've got to build on that and keep fighting hard, because we didn't get this far because we were depressed or down or didn't have hope. But this is a lap in a marathon for racial justice and for equity. And so we have to run our lap of this race. John Lewis passed us that baton.
Yes.
And so we've got to run, and don't get tired, take care of yourself and be hopeful.
I will. Thank you, Congresswoman. Stay well, and we will continue to watch the legislation, and we know that you will continue to hold folks accountable to get it done.
Thank you so much. Good seeing you, and thanks again for everything you're doing.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.